Today on Free Field Training, we're looking at my newest watch. This is a G-Shock Mudmaster model GGB100-1A. It is basically the most basic model of G-Shock Mudmaster. I am really happy with it so far. I've had it about 2 weeks. It was an early Father's Day gift from my kids. You may remember my old G-Shock watch. This one is the second of this particular model that I owned. It had a problem with these decorative screws coming out of it. Not that that's a huge deal, but the major problem that it had was crud would get underneath the illumination button and it would cause it to stick on or stick off, which would mean either I would get no illumination when I was working at night, that's not good, or it would stick on, which would cause it to use up far more electricity than the solar panels could feed into the batteries, which caused it to die and not be any use to me at all, which is also not good. So I told the kids when this one started to have the same problems, I need a new watch. And of course the wife took over and found this one for me. This is the Mudmaster, and the big advantage for me that it has over this is, well, this is waterproof and fairly shockproof, etc. This one is waterproof down to 20 bar, which is a lot, in case you need to look that up. And the pushers are all metal and are sealed against dust and mud, which means hopefully the same problem that I had with this, with gunk getting caught underneath the button, because I'm fairly hard on my equipment, won't be an issue with this watch here. There's some other features of this that I really wanted and some things about it that I don't like as much, so I'm going to get into those first. I like that it has an analog face. I prefer an analog face to a digital face. When I can get it, I got used to the digital face because it was what I could afford in a watch that I could wear all the time and use as like a tool watch at work. The other thing that I like about this watch is that the lume on it is really good. So going from a very lit area to a dark area, I can still see the watch without having to use the illuminator. Hopefully that helps with some of the issues with the button getting wore out or stuck with gunk. I really like the illumination that it has on it. It's very bright, makes it very easy to read the entire watch at night, and it lasts just the right amount of time. It doesn't last too long or not long enough where I can't read what the watch face says. I really like the second hand, and that it has a nice white tip that for some reason shows up. You wouldn't think on a fairly busy watch face like this that white tip would show up really well, but the way that it ticks away draws attention to that little white tip in a way that makes it easy to see and easy to keep track of those 1 second clicks. There's some other features of this watch that I really enjoy that I wanted and I thought I would have to go to a smartwatch to get. One is a step counter, and the step counter is pretty easy. It's just this pusher up here. You can get to it fairly easily. You go through your barometer and the digital time, and it takes you to the step counter, and it keeps track of your steps. It does reset every day at midnight, which isn't so good for working midnight shift, but it does allow me to keep track of my steps when I'm off and I'm on vacation or I'm out hiking, things like that, which can be useful as almost like a pedometer. If I know how many steps I've taken since the last waypoint, I know kind of how far I've gone. There's also an altimeter, although that is not super useful for me being here in Chicago, Illinois. Pretty much always varies between 100 and 0 depending on how close I am to the lake, actually a little above 0, but not really applicable for me. However, the compass, although not fantastic, does tend to point to the general direction of north, which in an urban area can be very helpful on the fly. I wouldn't go take compass readings off of this. Another reason I really like the red painted second hand with the white tip is it makes it easy to use the compass. I wouldn't take compass readings based on this, but it is really useful to just get a general idea of what direction you're facing. Is helpful in the city, kind of the same way the compass on your car is useful when navigating around in the city. There is the ability to connect it with a smartphone to do some other applications that I'm probably honestly not going to use. The ability to use the quad sensor in this that gives you barometric pressure and temperature and all of that, and link it with your smartphone and with an app software so you can kind of see a full picture of the trip that you took when you're out hiking. I don't see a lot of application for that, but each individual thing is kind of helpful for me. There's also a thermometer, which is really only accurate when you leave the watch sitting somewhere when it's not on you, because if it's on you, it's going to read your body temperature, which I guess during the pandemic might be helpful, but realistically, it's not going to give you an accurate representation of what it's like outside unless you turn the thermometer on, leave it there for a little while, and then check it later and get a more accurate representation. You can also get sunrise and sunset on this in case you're interested in that without having a second display. You have a stopwatch that's available. I use that sometimes to record how long I'm taking on my lunch, so I know when my lunch is over, since it doesn't have an adjustable bezel on it. In order to keep track of time, I can just set the stopwatch and then I know when my 1 hour is up. There's a timer. Counting down for 10 minutes is the default. I haven't really played with that much. There's several alarms, and you can change your secondary time on the watch to either display a digital version of the current time, or you can set it to display a digital version of a time in another city, or you can set it to display the day of the week and the month and the date, which is what I do because at work I'm constantly filling out forms and I need to know that information. So in my day-to-day use, this is the default mode that I have it in and what I always set it back to, telling me it is Wednesday, 6/17. I know it's 2020 at 12:21 or 12:22 p.m. And then if I want to see my step counter, I punch this a couple times and I get my steps for the day. And then I can go right back again, which makes it really easy to use. Here's our loom during the day, and here it is at night. And everything else is only really useful on an occasional basis for me. The case is a hard polymer and some sort of fiberglass or carbon fiber composite, probably carbon fiber given the size and how good it looks. I think it looks pretty good. It is a little larger than my old watch, and those are all the things that I like about it. Now, what I dislike about it is that it is not solar powered. So this has a battery. They say the battery is good. They say the battery is good for 2 years. We'll have to see about that. I like solar because it means it'll just run and run and run until it breaks. I don't ever have to worry about replacing a battery, but I've seen lots of reports of people saying that they've had these for 5 and 10 years and never had to replace the battery. I imagine that's going to have a lot to do with how often you use that illumination button, and I use it quite a bit, so we'll have to see long term how long the batteries last and what the process is for having to replace them, because it's not like I see a real easy to pop off back cover in order to get that battery out of there. I would prefer it not have this little double clasp on here. I'd prefer it be a single, like my old watch. And the band is very stiff, almost uncomfortably stiff. We'll have to see if it loosens up over time, but we're looking at this just out of the box. The box, this is how it comes packed, is right here in a metal tin, and inside is a foam thing, and the watch comes packed inside of this. It's nothing too astounding, but it's nice to see that they didn't put a whole bunch of time and effort into a really nice leather box for something that is just a tool watch, albeit a fairly expensive one. In case you're worried about the exact model number and all of that, I'll give you some shots of the tag that came with, and some good shots of the numbers on the back of the watch here. You can try to freeze frame that and glean whatever information you need to in order to find it. This one, I am told, my wife bought directly off the G-Shock website so that we wouldn't get a forgery, because there's apparently lots of those floating around on the internet. And that's what I would suggest you do, even though normally I will put Amazon links down below and that helps the channel out. In this case, my recommendation, given all of the forgeries that are out there, is if you want one of these, you get it directly from Casio's website. That is the G-Shock Mudmaster and my first initial impression after using it for a couple of weeks. I hope that helps you guys out if you are also looking for an upgrade over one of the more base model G-Shocks, or if you're just getting into tool watches and you've got the money to spend. I highly recommend this one as of right now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next week. Hey, thanks for watching Free Field Training on YouTube. While you're here, check out one of our other videos, or head on over to the Patreon and see how you can get your name put on your videos like these fine folks over here. All the links are in the description, of course. We'll see you guys next time.